Admiral Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive alien ships floating in the darkness of space. The Galactic Council meeting had been going on for 3 days, and he was tired of waiting. Earth had been a member of the Council for only 6 months, but Kim already knew they were making a mistake. "Admiral, the Council has sent another message," said Captain Jin-Ho Lee, walking up with a datapad in his hand. "They're still saying no to our request for defensive technology." Kim took the pad and read the message. The same polite words, the same excuses. Earth was too young, too dangerous, too unpredictable. The Council would not share their advanced shield technology or weapon systems with humanity. They would protect Earth, they said, but humans had to stay in their small corner of space and behave like good children. "Sir, we really need that technology," said Dr. So-Young Park, the mission's xenobiologist. "The asteroid belt near Mars is becoming unstable. Without proper shields, we can't build the mining stations we need." Kim nodded. He had heard this argument many times. Earth needed resources to grow, but the Council kept saying no to everything that might help humanity expand. They treated humans like dangerous pets that needed to be kept in a cage. Through the massive viewing windows of the Council chamber, Kim could see the 3 great motherships that ruled the galaxy. The Velthari ship looked like a giant crystal, beautiful and cold. The Nim Collective's vessel was a sphere of swirling gas and energy that hurt to look at directly. The Korath mothership was all metal and angles, a perfect machine built by other machines. Each ship was bigger than Earth's moon and contained weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. For 1,000 years, these 3 species had kept peace in the galaxy by being stronger than everyone else. Smaller species followed their rules or faced destruction. "Ambassador Choi is still trying to negotiate," said Lee, but the Velthari representative said humans need to mature before they can be trusted with real technology. Kim felt anger rising in his chest. Mature, as if humans were children playing with toys. He thought about the brilliant engineers back on Earth who had built faster-than-light engines from scratch. He thought about the brave explorers who had crossed impossible distances to reach the stars. Children didn't do things like that. "Admiral, I'm detecting movement from the Korath ship," said the communications officer. "They're sending out patrol drones." Kim looked at the display screen. Small metal shapes were spreading out from the Korath mothership like seeds from a flower. Each drone was the size of a building and carried enough firepower to level a city. This was how the Council kept order, by showing everyone their power. "How many human ships do we have in this system?" Kim asked. 12, sir," replied Lee, "but they're all diplomatic vessels, light weapons only." Kim walked to the center of the bridge. He had been thinking about this moment for weeks. Earth's leaders had sent him here to make friends with the Council, to find a place for humanity in the galactic community. But what if the galactic community didn't want humans as equals? What if they only wanted servants? "Dr. Park, you've studied the Council's technology for months," he said. "What's their biggest weakness?" Park looked surprised by the question. "Well, they rely on traditional tactics, the same strategies they've used for centuries. They don't expect anyone to try something completely new." "And their shields?" "Very strong against energy weapons and explosives, but they're designed to work in specific ways. If you could disrupt the harmonic frequency." She stopped talking and stared at him. "Admiral, what are you thinking?" Kim smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "I'm thinking about what makes humans different from every other species in this galaxy." "Sir?" asked Lee. "We don't accept no for an answer." Kim activated the ship's communication system. Across the solar system, the captains of 11 other human ships received his signal. They had all been briefed on this possibility, though none of them thought it would actually happen. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Operation Breakthrough is now active." "Repeat, Operation Breakthrough is now active." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at Kim as if he had just declared war on the entire galaxy. In a way, he had. "Sir, are you sure about this?" asked Lee. "If we do this, there's no going back." "There was never any going back," Kim replied. "The Council will never see us as equals. They'll keep us locked in our little corner of space forever, giving us scraps when we beg nicely enough. On the display screens, Kim watched the human ships begin to move. They looked tiny next to the Council motherships, like insects flying toward giants, but Kim knew something the Council didn't. Sometimes insects could bring down giants. "Admiral, the Velthari are sending a message," said the communications officer. "They want to know why our ships are changing position. Tell them we're conducting a training exercise," Kim said. The human ships had spent the last 6 months secretly studying Council technology. Every time they visited a Council world, human engineers had recorded everything they could see. Every energy reading, every shield frequency, every weapon signature had been analyzed and stored. The plan was simple and insane. Each human ship carried a modified fusion reactor that had been tuned to a specific frequency. When activated together, these reactors would create a harmonic pulse that would disrupt the Council ship's shield systems for exactly 47 seconds. That was enough time to disable their engines and weapons without killing anyone. At least that was the theory. "All ships report ready," said Lee. Kim took a deep breath. "Execute." 12 human ships fired their modified reactors at the same moment. Waves of energy spread out through space, invisible to normal sensors but devastating to Council technology. The harmonic pulse hit all 3 motherships at once. The results were immediate and spectacular. The crystal beauty of the Velthari ship flickered and went dark. The swirling energy of the Nim Collective's vessel suddenly stopped moving. The perfect metal of the Korath ship sparked with electrical fires as its systems shut down. "Direct hits on all targets," reported the tactical officer. "Their shields are down and their weapons are offline." "Phase 2, ordered Kim. The human ships fired again, but this time with conventional weapons. Precise strikes hit the Council ship's engine systems, leaving them floating helplessly in space. The mighty rulers of the galaxy had been reduced to expensive junk in less than 5 minutes. "My God," whispered Dr. Park. "We actually did it." Across the galaxy, emergency signals began broadcasting the news. The Council motherships, symbols of order and power for 1,000 years, had been defeated by the newest members of the Galactic community. Species that had never dared to challenge the Council began to ask questions. If humans could do this, what else was possible? "Admiral, we're receiving communications from 17 different species," said the communications officer. "They all want to know the same thing." "What's that?" asked Kim. "How did we do it, and can we teach them?" Kim looked out at the disabled Council ships. He felt no joy in what he had done, only a terrible sense of responsibility. The old order was broken now. What would take its place? "Sir, the Velthari are requesting emergency assistance," reported Lee. "Their life support systems are failing." "Send repair crews immediately," Kim ordered. "We're not murderers. We're just tired of being treated like children." Ambassador Mira Choi's voice came over the communication system from the Council chamber. "Admiral, the representatives are in chaos. Some are calling for your immediate execution, others are declaring independence from Council authority." "What do I tell them?" Kim thought for a moment. "Tell them the galaxy just grew up, whether they like it or not." Over the next few hours, the news spread to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The Council's authority, built on the fear of their superior technology, crumbled as species after species realized that the emperors had no clothes. Ancient grievances resurfaced, old territorial disputes reignited, and the careful balance that had kept peace for centuries began to collapse. Dr. Park tried to work with the other species to find a peaceful solution, but it was too late. The Velthari split into competing factions as different crystal formations declared their independence from the central authority. The Nim Collective fractured into dozens of smaller consciousness groups, each pursuing their own agenda. Even, the logical Korath began upgrading their military systems beyond their previous programming limits. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting military buildups in 12 different sectors," reported the tactical officer. "It looks like everyone is preparing for war." Kim stared out at the stars. He had wanted to free humanity from the Council's restrictions, but instead he had freed the galaxy from any restrictions at all. Without the Council to keep order, Chaos was spreading like wildfire. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Lee. "Get our people home," Kim said quietly, "and pray that we haven't just doomed the galaxy." As the human ships began their journey back to Earth, Kim couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something important. The Council had ruled for 1,000 years, but why? What were they really protecting the galaxy from? And now that their authority was gone, what would fill the void they had left behind? The answers to those questions would come soon. Enough, and Kim would discover that some prisons exist not to keep people in, but General Taemin Yoon stood in the war room deep beneath Seoul, staring at the holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked active conflicts, yellow showed disputed territories, and blue indicated safe zones. There was far too much red and not nearly enough blue. "How many new wars started this week?" he asked his aide. 47 confirmed conflicts, sir," replied Colonel Minho Bayek. "The Velthari crystal houses are fighting over mining rights in the Andorian sector. The Neem collectives can't agree on which consciousness stream should control their home worlds. And the Korath have upgraded their military protocols beyond anything we've seen before." Yoon rubbed his tired eyes. It had been 3 months since Admiral Kim had destroyed the Council's authority, and the galaxy was tearing itself apart. Every week brought news of new conflicts, broken alliances, and species that blamed humanity for the chaos that followed. "Any word from our colonies?" Yoon asked. "New Singapore was attacked 2 days ago," said Bayek grimly. "The attackers used Velthari crystal weapons, but we don't know which house was responsible. They destroyed 3 mining platforms and killed 42 people before Captain Lee's strike team drove them off." Yoon closed his eyes. 42 more deaths that were ultimately his responsibility. Earth's leaders had approved Admiral Kim's plan to challenge the Council, but they had never imagined the consequences would be this severe. Where is Captain Lee now? En route to the Kepler 442 colony, they reported strange energy readings near their outer defense grid 3 hours ago. Engineer Hyejin Nam looked up from her workstation across the room. "General, I've finished analyzing the wreckage from the Singapore attack. The weapons that hit our platforms weren't standard Velthari technology. They had been modified with human fusion cores." "What does that mean?" asked Yoon. "It means someone is combining our technology with theirs," Nam replied. "The energy output was 3 times higher than anything either species could produce alone. If other groups start doing this..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Yoon could see the implications clearly enough. Human technology was spreading across the galaxy, being combined with alien systems in ways that no one had predicted. The same innovative spirit that had helped humanity challenge the Council was now being used against them. "Sir, priority message from Commander Shin," announced the communications officer. "His deep space reconnaissance team has found something." The main display changed to show Commander Dong-hyun Shin's face. He looked exhausted and worried, which was unusual for the normally calm officer. "General Yoon, we've completed our survey of the outer rim sectors," Shin reported. "Something is happening out here that doesn't make sense. Entire star systems are going dark, but not from warfare." "Explain," ordered Yoon. "Yesterday we investigated the Zeta Reticuli system. According to our records, it should have 3 inhabited planets and a thriving trade station. When we arrived, we found nothing. No planets, no stations, no debris. Not even the star was there anymore." Yoon felt a chill run down his spine. "Equipment malfunction?" "That's what we thought, sir. But then we checked the Gliese 667 system. Same thing. Everything gone like it never existed. We've now confirmed 7 systems that have simply vanished from space." Engineer Nam stepped closer to the display. "Commander, are you detecting any unusual energy readings?" "That's the strange part," Shin replied. "Our sensors show absolutely nothing. Not empty space with radiation or debris. Actual nothingness. Like reality itself has been erased." Yoon looked at the star chart, trying to understand what he was hearing. Stars didn't just disappear. Planets couldn't be completely erased from existence. There had to be some explanation. "Sir, incoming message from Dr. Park," said the communications officer. "She says it's urgent." Dr. So-Young Park's face appeared on a smaller screen. She was at the former Council archives on Centauri Prime trying to understand the alien technology that humanity had inherited. Her expression was one of barely controlled panic. "General Yoon, I've made a discovery in the Council records," she said quickly. "The archives contain files that were sealed for over 1 billion years. I only managed to decrypt them by combining human computer systems with Koreth data processing units." "What did you find?" asked Yoon. "The truth about why the Council really existed," Park replied. "They weren't just rulers, General. They were prison guards." The war room fell silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing to listen. 1 billion years ago, this galaxy was inhabited by entities called the Devourers. They consumed everything: matter, energy, even space itself. The first species to encounter them were completely destroyed, but not before they managed to send out a warning. Park's hands shook as she manipulated her datapad. The early council wasn't formed to rule the galaxy. It was created to build a prison. Every protocol, every law, every restriction they imposed was designed to maintain barriers that kept the Devourers dormant at the galaxy's edge. Yoon felt the room spinning around him. "Are you saying that by destroying the Council's authority, we've weakened the prison?" "Yes," Park confirmed. "The barriers are failing, General. And something is waking up out there." As if summoned by her words, Commander Shin's voice crackled over the intercom. "General, we're detecting a massive energy signature moving toward the inner galaxy. It's bigger than anything on our charts, and it's coming from the area where those star systems disappeared." Engineer Nam was already working at her station, trying to calculate vectors and arrival times. If it maintains current velocity, it will reach the outer colonies in 6 days. "Can we stop it?" asked Yoon. "Sir, we don't even know what it is yet," replied Nam. "But based on the energy readings Commander Shin is sending us, conventional weapons would be useless." Captain Lee's voice joined the conversation from his ship near Kepler 442. "General, the energy readings at this colony just spiked. Something is manifesting in the outer system." "Get your people out of there, Captain," Yoon ordered. "Sir, there are 50,000 colonists here. We can't evacuate them all before." Lee's transmission cut off. The screen showing his ship's position went dark. "Kepler 442, please respond," called the communications officer. "Captain Lee, do you copy?" Only silence answered. Engineer Nam's face had gone pale as she studied the sensor data from the colony. "General, according to these readings, the Kepler 442 system no longer exists." Yoon stared at the empty space on the star chart where a thriving human colony had been moments before. 50,000 people, gone without a trace. No explosion, no debris, no final messages. Just erased from existence as if they had never been there at all. "How is that possible?" whispered Beck. Dr. Park's voice came from the archive station filled with terrible understanding. "Because they don't just kill their victims, they consume them completely. Body, mind, memory, even the space they occupied. It's like they never existed at all." A new voice joined the conversation, speaking through the communication system but coming from no identifiable source. It was the sound of 1,000 voices speaking in perfect harmony, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "The young species has freed us from our cage," the voice said. "We remember the taste of this galaxy. We hunger for its completion." Every screen in the war room flickered and showed the same image. A ship that seemed to be made of crystallized darkness, existing partially in normal space and partially somewhere else entirely. It was impossible to judge its size because it seemed to extend in directions that human eyes couldn't process. "We are the herald," the voice continued. "We speak for those who hunger. Your species has given us a great gift by destroying the barriers that held us. In return, we will grant you the honor of being consumed first." The image on the screen shifted, showing the remnants of Captain Lee's strike team floating in space near what used to be the Kepler 442 system. As they watched in horror, the soldiers began to fade away, not dying but simply ceasing to exist. "No," Yoon whispered. "Yes," replied the herald. "This is how it begins. This is how it always begins. First the few, then the many, then all. We have waited so long to taste this reality again. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. Engineer Nam was the first to speak. General, long-range sensors are detecting similar energy signatures in 17 different sectors. Whatever these things are, they're not just in one place. How long do we have? Asked Yoon. Based on their current rate of expansion, they'll reach the inner colonies within days. Earth itself will be threatened within weeks. Yoon looked around the room at his officers and staff. Good people who had never asked for this responsibility. Just like the rest of humanity, they were now facing consequences they had never imagined. Get me Admiral Kim, he ordered, and open channels to every species in the galaxy, even the ones that hate us. Sir? Asked back. If we're going to survive this, we need allies, Yoon said grimly. It's time to see if the species we freed from the Council's rule are willing to fight beside us against something infinitely worse. As emergency signals went out across the galaxy, Yoon wondered if it was already too late. The Devourers were awake, they were hungry, and they had been waiting 1 billion years for this moment. The chaos that humanity had unleashed by destroying the Council was about to become the least of their problems. Scientist Yujin Kang stared at the quantum readings on her screen and wished she could pretend they were wrong. The data made no sense according to everything humans knew about physics, but she had checked the calculations 17 times. The approaching entities existed partially outside normal spacetime, which explained why conventional sensors couldn't track them properly. Dr. Kang, how much longer until you have answers? Asked Admiral Kim from the command center of the hastily assembled research station. I need more time, sir, Kang replied, not looking away from her instruments. These beings operate on principles that we've never encountered. They don't just move through space, they reshape it as they travel. Around her, teams of human and alien scientists worked frantically to understand the enemy that was consuming star systems across the galaxy. The research station orbited a dead world in the neutral zone between former Council territories, protected by the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Captain Subin Jang entered the laboratory, her uniform torn and stained from the latest evacuation mission. Dr. Kang, we just finished evacuating the Vega colony. The Devourers arrived 4 hours after we left. How many people did you save? Asked Kang. 2 million, Jang replied. But there were 3 million when we started. The ones who stayed behind to help with the evacuation. She didn't finish the sentence. Kang nodded grimly. Every day brought similar reports. Entire populations were being erased from existence. Not killed but completely consumed as if they had never existed at all. The lucky colonies were the ones that got evacuation warnings in time. Has Dr. Park made any progress with the Council archives? Asked Kang. She's decoded another section, Jang replied. The news isn't good. Dr. Park's voice came over the intercom, from the archive section. Dr. Kang, I need you to see this immediately. Bring Admiral Kim. Minutes later, they were all gathered around Park's workstation, staring at holographic displays that showed the ancient history of the galaxy. The images were beautiful and terrible, showing civilizations that had existed billions of years before. Humanity was even a possibility. I found records of the first Devourer War, Park said, her voice barely above a whisper. The galaxy was populated by hundreds of advanced species back then. Beings that could manipulate matter at the molecular level, entities that existed as pure energy, machine intelligences that spanned entire star systems. The display showed images of impossible cities floating in space, planets that had been turned into massive computers, and stellar engineering projects that dwarfed anything the current galaxy had imagined. What happened to them? Asked Admiral Kim. The same thing that's happening now, Park replied. The Devourers emerged from the space between galaxies and began consuming everything. But these weren't just mindless predators. They learned from every species they consumed, taking their knowledge and abilities and adding them to their own. The holographic display changed, showing the progression of the ancient war. At first, the galaxy's species fought separately, each convinced they could handle the threat alone. As the Devourers consumed more civilizations, They became stronger and smarter. Look at this, Park said, pointing to a timeline. Within 50 years, the Devourers went from simple energy parasites to entities that could manipulate space-time itself. Every species they consumed made them more dangerous. Colonel Beck, who had arrived with Admiral Kim, studied the tactical information. How did the war end? It didn't, Park said quietly. The remaining species realized they couldn't win. Instead, they built a prison. It took everything they had, their technology, their lives, their entire civilizations. They sacrificed themselves to create barriers that would contain the Devourers at the edge of the galaxy. The display showed the construction of massive installations throughout space, each one powered by the life force of entire species. The builders knew they were creating their own extinction, but they did it anyway to save future generations. The council was created from the survivors, Park continued. Their only job was to maintain the barriers and make sure no one ever discovered what they were really protecting the galaxy from. Admiral Kim's face was pale. Until we destroyed their authority and weakened the prison. The barriers are failing, confirmed Park. And every system the Devourers consume makes them stronger. Dr. Kang looked at the quantum readings again, understanding now why the numbers had seemed impossible. They're not just consuming matter and energy. They're consuming the basic structure of reality itself. Exactly, said Park. That's why the star systems don't just disappear, they're completely erased from existence. The space they occupied ceases to be. Captain Jiang had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. Dr. Park, you said the ancient species couldn't win the war, but they were far more advanced than we are. What chance do we have? Before Park could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The lights dimmed as emergency power systems activated. All personnel to battle stations, announced the station's AI. Massive energy signature detected approaching the system. Admiral Kim activated his communicator. Admiral Song, what's our status? Admiral Yoonji Song's voice crackled over the intercom from the fleet command ship. Sir, we have a Herald vessel. Approaching. It's the same type that appeared at Kepler 442. Through the laboratory's viewing windows, they could see the approaching ship. It was impossibly beautiful and terrifying, looking like crystallized darkness that shifted between dimensions. Parts of it existed in normal space while other sections seemed to fade in and out of reality. All ships maintain defensive formation, ordered Admiral Kim. Do not fire unless fired upon. The Herald ship stopped just outside the fleet's weapon range. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the voice spoke again, that harmonious chorus of 1,000 consumed minds. We wish to speak with the young species that freed us, the Herald said. You have given us such a gift. I'm Admiral Kim of the human fleet, Kim replied through the communication system. What do you want? To thank you, the Herald replied, and to offer you understanding before we consume you. You deserve to know the truth about what you have accomplished. The Herald's ship moved closer, and suddenly Dr. Kang felt a presence in her mind. Not threatening or painful, but vast and ancient beyond imagination. You fear us because you do not understand us, the Herald said, and now its voice seemed to come from inside everyone's head. We are not evil. We are dying. Images flooded Kang's consciousness. She saw the Devourer's home dimension, a realm of impossible beauty that was collapsing into nothingness. Entire universes were folding in on themselves, reducing infinite possibilities to a single point of absolute zero. Our reality is ending, the Herald explained. We have watched countless universes die, seen infinite possibilities collapse into nothing. This galaxy, this dimension, is our only hope for survival. By destroying everything in it? Demanded Admiral Kim. By preserving it, the Herald corrected. When we consume a being, they do not die. They become part of us, eternal and safe from the end of all things. Every memory, every thought, every experience is preserved forever within our collective consciousness. Captain Yang stepped forward. What about their freedom? Their right to choose their own path? What freedom is there in extinction? The Herald asked sadly. Your dimension will eventually collapse just as ours did. When that happens, everything you have ever been will be lost forever. We offer immortality. Dr. Kang felt the herald's presence withdraw from her mind, leaving behind a sense of vast sadness and infinite loneliness. She realized with horror that the entity was telling the truth. The Devourers genuinely believed they were offering salvation. "You see now," the herald said, "we are not conquerors. We are refugees, seeking shelter in the only place that can sustain us. Your species opened the door by destroying the barriers. We will be forever grateful." "And if we refuse your offer?" asked Admiral Kim. "Then you will be consumed anyway," the herald replied matter-of-factly, "but unwillingly, without the peace that comes from understanding. The choice is yours, but the outcome is inevitable." The herald ship began to retreat, but the voice continued to echo in everyone's minds. "We will give you time to consider our offer. Gather your species, speak with your leaders, prepare your people. When we return, you may choose to join us willingly, or we will take you regardless. Either way, you will be preserved forever." As the herald ship disappeared into the space between dimensions, the research station fell silent. Everyone had felt the entity's presence, experienced its memories of dying universes and endless loneliness. "My God," whispered Captain Zhang. "It really believes it's helping us." Dr. Kang looked at her instruments, trying to process what she had learned. The quantum signatures make sense now. They're not just consuming our reality, they're trying to merge it with their dying dimension. "Can we stop them?" asked Admiral Kim. "I don't know," Kang replied honestly. "But I understand now why the ancient species couldn't win. How do you fight an enemy that genuinely believes it's saving you?" Colonel Bayek was studying the tactical displays. "Sir, we're receiving similar reports from 17 other Herald encounters. They're making the same offer to every species in the galaxy." "What are the responses?" asked Kim. "Mixed," Beck replied. Admiral Yunji Song stood before the largest gathering in galactic history, watching representatives from over 300 species argue about survival. The emergency conference had been going on for 12 hours, and they were no closer to agreement than when they started. "The humans caused this crisis," declared the Velthari crystal speaker, its form flickering with angry red light. "They should face the Devourers alone." "The Korath Collective agrees," added the mechanical representative, its metallic voice echoing through the vast chamber. "Human recklessness has doomed us all." Admiral Kim, sitting at the human delegation table, remained calm despite the accusations. "Blame won't save any of us. The Devourers are coming whether we work together or not." Dr. Wu Jin Han, the consciousness transfer researcher, looked up from her datapad. "Admirals, I have an update on the Herald encounters. The Devourers have made contact with 47 more species in the last day. Some are beginning to surrender." "Which ones?" asked Song. "The Nexari submitted 6 hours ago," Han replied quietly. "Their entire homeworld chose collective consumption rather than resistance. The Devourers honored their request and consumed them peacefully." The chamber fell silent. Everyone had heard reports of violent consumption, of entire populations screaming as they were erased from existence. The idea that some beings were choosing to surrender willingly was deeply disturbing. "Perhaps surrender is the logical choice," suggested a representative from the Zephyrian gas beings. "If resistance is futile, why not accept preservation within their collective consciousness?" "Because it's not preservation," said Captain Ji-Hai Moon from her position near the tactical displays. "My infiltration team has been studying the Herald's quantum signatures. What they're offering isn't immortality, it's eternal imprisonment." Moon had been working with the Alliance's most dangerous mission, sending consciousness probes into Herald vessels to gather intelligence. Half of her team had been lost in the attempts, their minds trapped in the space between dimensions. "Explain," ordered Admiral Song. "When the Devourers consume a being, they don't preserve their individuality," Moon continued. "They absorb their knowledge and memories, but the person themselves ceases to exist as a separate entity. They become part of a collective consciousness, with no individual will." Dr. Han nodded grimly. Captain Moon is correct. I've analyzed the quantum patterns from the consumed worlds. There are no individual consciousness signatures remaining, just data absorbed into the collective. The NIM collective representative, a swirling cloud of energy and thought, pulsed with confusion. But the herald showed us memories of the consumed. We felt their presence. You felt copies of their memories, explained Han. Perfect recordings of who they were, but not the actual beings themselves. It's like having a photograph of someone after they've died. The image remains, but the person is gone forever. Admiral Kim stood up, addressing the assembly. 3 months ago, I made a decision that led to this crisis. I won't apologize for wanting freedom for humanity, but I take full responsibility for the consequences. Now we need to decide what we're going to do about it. What can we do? Asked the Velthari speaker. The ancient species were far more advanced than us, and they couldn't defeat the devourers. They didn't have something we have, Kim replied. Which is what? Demanded the Koreth representative. Desperation and diversity, Kim said simply. The ancient species fought as separate civilizations, each trying to preserve their own way of life. We don't have that luxury. We're all facing extinction together. Dr. Park's voice came over the communication system from the research station. Admirals, I've found something in the archives. The ancient species did try to work together at the end, but by then the devourers had consumed too many civilizations and become too powerful. What's the significance? Asked Song. The devourers learn from everything they consume, Park explained. Every species, every technology, every tactical strategy becomes part of their knowledge base. But there's a delay in the integration process. Captain Moon stepped forward. How long? Based on the archived data, approximately 72 hours between consumption and full integration, Park replied. If we could strike before they fully absorb their latest victims, we might catch them before they adapt to our strategies, finished Admiral Song. But we'd need to coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy simultaneously. Engineer Nam's voice joined the conversation from Earth's command center. Admirals, I've been working on the Herald ship analysis. Their vessels exist partially in normal space and partially in what they call the void dimension. If we could disrupt the connection between dimensions, they'd be forced completely into normal space where conventional weapons might work, said Dr. Han, understanding immediately. The question is how, said Kim. We need technology that can affect dimensional barriers. The Velthari speaker's crystal form flickered with sudden interest. The crystal formations of our homeworld can manipulate harmonic frequencies across multiple dimensions. But we would need massive power sources to affect something as large as a Herald ship. The NIM collective possesses energy manipulation capabilities that could provide that power, added the gas-being representative. But only if we work in perfect harmony with crystal frequency patterns. The Koreth representative's mechanical voice carried a note of calculation. Koreth manufacturing facilities could mass-produce the required technology, but organic intuition would be needed to fine-tune the harmonic resonances. For the first time since the conference began, the different species were talking about cooperation instead of blame. What about the Devourer's collective consciousness? Asked Captain Moon. Could we disrupt their mental connection the same way we disrupt their dimensional anchoring? Dr. Han looked thoughtful. In theory, yes, but we'd need someone to infiltrate their collective consciousness and plant a disruption virus from within. That would be a suicide mission, said Admiral Song. Not necessarily, Moon replied quietly. My team has developed techniques for consciousness transfer that could allow someone to enter their collective and return. The risk would be enormous, but it might be possible. I'll do it, said Dr. Han. No, Moon said firmly. This is what my team trained for. I'll take the mission. Admiral Kim looked around the vast chamber at the hundreds of representatives. For the first time in galactic history, species that had been enemies for millennia were discussing working together against a common threat. We need a coordinated plan, he said. 3 simultaneous operations. First, dimensional disruption attacks on Herald ships throughout the galaxy. Second, a massive assault on their main force before they can fully integrate their latest conquests. Third, infiltration of their collective consciousness to plant a virus that disrupts their mental coordination. The timing would have to be perfect, warned Song. If any operation fails, the others become impossible. Then we don't fail, Kim replied simply. The Velthari speaker pulsed with determination. The crystal houses will provide harmonic disruption technology. The NIM, collectives will contribute energy manipulation capabilities, added the gas being representative. Korath Manufacturing will produce all required equipment, stated the mechanical delegate. One by one, species that had never worked together began volunteering resources and expertise. Ancient enemies put aside their differences to face an extinction threat that made their previous conflicts seem trivial. How long do we have? Asked Song. Dr. Park's voice came over the intercom with the answer everyone dreaded. Long-range sensors detect massive Devourer fleet movements. They're consolidating their forces for a final push toward the galactic core. Based on current trajectories, they'll reach the inner systems in 96 hours. 4 days, whispered Captain Moon. 4 days to build an alliance that has never existed before, said Admiral Kim. 4 days to create weapons that have never been tested. 4 days to coordinate the largest military operation in galactic history. And if we fail? Asked the Korath representative. Then consciousness ends in this galaxy, Kim replied. Not death, complete cessation of individual existence. Everything we've ever been, everything we could become, absorbed into an alien collective that believes it's saving us. The chamber fell silent as the full weight of their situation settled on every representative present. They were facing an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be bargained with, and possessed the combined knowledge of hundreds of consumed civilizations. One question, said the Zephyrian representative. Why should we trust humans to lead this alliance? Your species caused this crisis. Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment. Because we're the species that refuses to accept impossible odds. 3 months ago, we took on the most powerful government in galactic history and won. Not because we were stronger, but because we didn't accept that their way was the only way. The Devourers think they're offering us salvation, added Captain Moon. They believe that individual consciousness is a weakness that leads to suffering and death. But we know something they don't understand. Which is? Asked the Velthari speaker. That existence without choice isn't existence at all, Moon replied. It's just a very detailed recording of what we used to be. Admiral Song activated the Alliance communication network, bro. Fleet Admiral Sang-Ho Ryu stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for humanity's final gamble. Ships from 300 different species filled the void of space. Their various technologies merged into weapons that had never existed before. Status report, he ordered. Dr. Yejin Ko looked up from the dimensional physics station. The harmonic resonance array is online across 47 star systems. Every inhabited world is now part of the weapon. The weapon was humanity's desperate solution to an impossible problem. Since conventional attacks had proven useless against beings that existed partially outside normal spacetime, they would force the entire galaxy to become a single massive dimensional disruptor. Every planet, every space station, every living being would contribute to a reality-altering frequency, designed to push the Devourers back into their dying dimension. What's the cost analysis? Asked Ryu, though he dreaded the answer. 17 star systems will be completely drained of energy, Ko replied quietly. The civilizations that volunteer to anchor the primary resonance points will not survive the process. Ryu nodded grimly. They had known from the beginning that this plan would require sacrifices on an unimaginable scale. Entire species had volunteered to power the dimensional weapon, knowing it would mean their extinction. Any word from Captain Moon's infiltration team? Commander Junseo Park, who was coordinating the final assault, checked his displays. She penetrated the Devourer collective consciousness 6 hours ago. No communication since then. Captain Moon's mission was the most dangerous part of the entire operation. While the dimensional weapon would force the Devourers back into normal space, and the combined fleet would attack their physical forms. She had to plant a consciousness virus in the core of their hive mind. If she failed, the Devourers would adapt to their attacks within hours and become unstoppable. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Herald," announced the communications officer. The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar harmonious collective of voices that spoke for the Devourers. But something was different this time. The Herald's image seemed less stable, flickering between dimensions as if struggling to maintain its connection to normal space. "Young species," the Herald said, "we detect massive energy buildups throughout your galaxy. You are preparing to resist us." "We're preparing to remain free," Ryu replied. "Freedom is an illusion that leads only to suffering," the Herald responded sadly. "We have offered you preservation, immortality within our collective consciousness. Why do you choose extinction instead?" "Because extinction as individuals is better than existence as copies," Ryu said firmly. The Herald's form flickered more violently. "You do not understand. Your dimension will collapse eventually just as ours did. When that happens, everything you have ever been will be lost forever. We offer the only salvation possible. We choose to face that ending as ourselves," replied Ryu, "not as absorbed memories in someone else's mind." "Then you choose poorly," the Herald said with infinite sadness. "We had hoped to preserve you willingly, but we see now that your species' obsession with individuality blinds you to wisdom. We will consume you regardless, but without the peace that comes from acceptance." The transmission ended, but Ryu could see massive energy signatures appearing on sensors throughout the galaxy. The Devourers were abandoning their slow, systematic consumption and preparing for a final assault. "All stations, begin the resonance sequence," Ryu ordered. Across the galaxy, billions of beings began to synchronize their thoughts and technologies. The Velthari crystal formations hummed with harmonic frequencies that reached across dimensions. The Nim collectives focused their consciousness into pure energy streams. The Korath manufacturing worlds converted their entire industrial capacity into power generators. On Earth, Dr. Park stood in the Sol Command Center, watching as every human colony contributed to the effort. "Resonance at 30% and rising," she reported. "But Admiral, the energy drain is massive. We're already losing power grids on 12 worlds." "Continue the sequence," Ryu ordered. In the space between dimensions, Captain Moon struggled through an ocean of absorbed consciousness. The Devourer collective was vast beyond imagination, containing the preserved memories of billions of beings consumed over eons. She could feel their presence. Not the beings themselves, but perfect copies of their thoughts and experiences. It was like swimming through a library of ghosts, each one a complete record of someone who had once existed. She heard the voices of the ancient species that had built the first prison, warriors and philosophers and artists who had sacrificed everything to contain the Devourers. Their memories were preserved here, but their individuality was gone. At the center of the collective, Moon could sense the controlling intelligence, not a single being, but a merger of the first Devourers that had achieved consciousness. It was ancient beyond measure and genuinely believed that absorption was salvation. "I can hear your thoughts, small one," the central intelligence spoke to her. "You carry a weapon designed to harm us." "Not harm," Moon replied, fighting to maintain her individual consciousness against the overwhelming presence around her. "Liberation." "You cannot liberate us from our nature," the intelligence said sadly. "We are what we are because we chose survival over extinction, just as you are making the same choice now. The difference is that we choose for ourselves," Moon said, beginning to activate the consciousness virus. "We don't force our choice on others. Every choice forces consequences on others," the intelligence replied. "Your decision to remain individual will doom countless beings to true death when your dimension eventually collapses." Moon felt the virus beginning to spread through the collective consciousness, a quantum pattern that would disrupt the Devourer's ability to coordinate their actions. But she also felt the intelligence's profound sadness and loneliness. "You're not evil," she realized. "You're just afraid." We have watched infinite possibilities die, the intelligence confirmed. Entire universes reduced to nothing. We are the last survivors of reality itself, trying to preserve something from the endless collapse. For a moment, Moon hesitated. The Devourers really did believe they were offering salvation. Their method was horrifying, but their goal was preservation of consciousness in any form possible. Then she thought about the children she had evacuated from doomed colonies, the families torn apart by forced consumption, the species that had chosen surrender rather than fight for their right to exist as individuals. Some things are worth dying for, she said, and activated the virus. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Throughout the Devourer collective, the controlling intelligence began to fragment as its ability to coordinate billions of absorbed consciousness patterns collapsed. The herald ships throughout the galaxy suddenly became erratic, their dimensional anchoring failing as their controlling minds lost focus. Resonance at 90%, reported Dr. Ko from the Alliance flagship. The dimensional weapon is ready to fire. All fleets attack formation, ordered Admiral Ryu. Target the herald ships while they're disrupted. The largest battle in galactic history began as millions of ships from hundreds of species opened fire on herald vessels that were struggling to maintain their existence in normal space. Weapons that combined Velthari crystal technology, Nim energy manipulation, and Korath manufacturing precision tore through herald ships that could no longer shift between dimensions. But the cost was enormous. As the dimensional weapon reached full power, entire star systems began to die. The 17 worlds that had volunteered to anchor the primary resonance points were drained of all energy, their populations sacrificing themselves to power the galaxy-wide weapon. "Admiral, we're losing the Kepler system," reported Commander Park. "The resonance anchor is failing." "Redirect power from the Sol system backup," Ryu ordered, knowing he was condemning Earth's outer colonies to the same fate. In the space between dimensions, Captain Moon felt the collective consciousness collapsing around her. The virus was working, but she was trapped in the disintegrating mental network with no way to escape. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the ancient intelligence that was fragmenting into billions of individual thoughts. "I'm sorry you lost your home." "Perhaps," the intelligence replied with its dying coherence. "Your way is not wrong. Perhaps individual choice is worth the risk of extinction." "I hope so," Moon said, as her own consciousness began to fade. The battle raged for 18 hours. Herald ships that had been invincible were destroyed one by one as they were forced into normal space, where conventional weapons could affect them. But every victory came at a terrible price in worlds drained of energy and fleets destroyed by desperate Devourer counterattacks. Finally, Fleet Admiral Ryu made the ultimate decision. The dimensional weapon had pushed most of the Devourers back into their dying dimension, but some remained trapped in normal space, cut off from their collective consciousness and slowly dying. "Open communications to the surviving Devourers," he ordered. A single herald ship responded, its harmonious voice now fragmented and confused. What have you done to us?" "Given you what you gave to others," Ryu replied. "Individual, existence without choice." "We are dying," the herald said, "and for the